Let me tell you something. If you'd walked by that gas station on Route 4 that afternoon, you'd have thought it was just another ordinary summer day. Sun beating down, air heavy with the smell of gasoline and hot asphalt. But right there, by pump number 3, the whole world was about to flip inside out, all because 2 cops picked the wrong woman to push around. Yeah, that happened. And the way it unfolded? You couldn't script it if you tried. Picture this. A young black woman perched cool as ice on a matte black superbike, boots planted, body language all business. Rocking army green like she's straight out of a recruitment poster, sunglasses hiding her eyes, but not the confidence rolling off her in waves. She's just filling her tank, minding her own. When a cruiser pulls up, lights flashing for no reason, 2 white cops hopping out like they're already sure she's trouble. You could see it in the way they walked, not curious, not careful. Just full of that twitchy, cock-gun authority you get when you've never had to check yourself. The first one, built like a linebacker, face already twisted up, barks, "Ma'am, what's your business here?" His hand sits real casual on his holster, like that's supposed to scare her. She just says, "Gas." That's it. Not even a blink. The tension? You could feel it buzzing in the air, drawing every eye in the parking lot. Folks started filming, of course, 'cause everyone knows how these things can go. The second cop circles, radio squawking, and the first one claims, "We got a report of a stolen bike fitting this description." She cracks a slow, half-amused smile. Not disrespectful, just, like she's heard it all before. "Maybe double-check your report," she says, voice steady, not a hint of fear. You could see the gears turning in his head, like he'd never met a woman who wouldn't just fold or start crying. But she doesn't. She keeps pumping gas. Cool as ever, and now there's a crowd watching. Phones up, the whole 9 yards. The officer pushes in closer, says, "Don't play smart, miss." He gets loud, tries to box her in. She just stares at him, lets him hear it. "Is this because I'm here with a badge, or because you can't stand a woman like me who doesn't bow down?" Now the crowd's murmuring. One lady even gasps, and the lead cop's face turns a whole new shade of red. "You're 2 seconds from being arrested," he shouts. But she just leans in, eyes never leaving his, and says, "You think that scares me?" Dead calm, like she's been through things these 2 couldn't even dream about. The second officer suddenly seems uneasy, looks her up and down, mutters, "Wait a sec." But his partner doesn't care. Grabs for her wrist, thinking he'll show her who's in charge. Big mistake. She spins, fast as lightning, twists out of his grip, doesn't hurt him but makes him stumble, all the while keeping her voice just above a whisper. "Never touch a soldier like that." It hits everyone at once. Soldier? The crowd hushes, second cop's eyes get big. She reaches into her cargo pocket, slow so nobody gets jumpy, pulls out a battered military ID, flips it open. There, plain as day, gold insignia glinting in the sunlight. U.S. Army, officer. The air goes dead silent. Now the cops look like they've swallowed their own tongues. "Wait, you're military?" The second one manages. She just nods. "Undercover. Or, I was, until you forced me to break cover in front of a crowd." The lead cop's voice goes from tough to trembling, trying to apologize, but she just stares right through him. "You didn't ask. You assumed." Then she steps in real close, drops her voice so only he can hear. "Next time you try to intimidate someone, make sure you're not picking a fight with somebody trained to end wars." The shame hits those 2 like a bucket of ice water. The bystanders start whispering her name, some recognizing her from old headlines. Captain Naomi Carter, decorated for bravery overseas. The irony of it all, a police officer threatening an army officer. In broad daylight, on camera. She turns, hangs up the fuel pump, pulls on her helmet, and swings back onto her bike. The engine roars, she peels out, and everyone just stands there, stunned. Phone's still rolling. But it wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Because as the video exploded online, the 2 officers got hauled in front of their chief, badges yanked, news crews swarming the station. Protests popped up within hours, people demanding answers, justice, respect. But somewhere else, in a government office thick with tension, a handful of men in suits watched that same video, freeze framing on Naomi's face. "That's her," one muttered. "We thought she was off the grid." "Let me back up a sec. See, Naomi Carter hadn't just come home from Afghanistan to ride bikes and lay low. She was working a deep-cover job, sniffing out a weapons smuggling ring tangled up with dirty cops, the kind of operation that could topple more than just a precinct. And now, with her cover blown, the stakes just shot through the roof. Her phone buzzes, unknown number. The voice on the line is military, no nonsense. You stirred up a storm, Carter. The Pentagon's watching. Justice Department, too. You're not being pulled. We're expanding the operation. Turns out, those two officers weren't random. They were connected, maybe even testing her, seeing if she'd break. The whole thing? A setup, and now the enemy knew who she was. So what does Naomi do? She doesn't run, doesn't hide. She pulls off the highway at sunset, finds a spot to collect herself, scarred arms resting on her bike's tank, every inch of her screaming resilience. She gets the next message, coded, urgent, they're moving tonight. Location Pier 19. No time to think. She holsters her sidearm, slips into the night, the city sliding past in streaks of light. Down at the docks, it's quiet except for engines idling and the clatter of crates. The same cop who tried to arrest her is there. Only now he's laughing with men in tactical gear. No uniforms, just the stink of corruption. Naomi calls it in, backup on the way, but she's always been the type to go first. In a blur, she's got the ringleader pinned against a truck, gun on the ground. Her words like ice. Remember me? The woman you thought you could intimidate. He's scared now. But Naomi's past fear. You sold your badge for blood money, she spits. Sirens wail, lights flash, and in minutes the docks are crawling with agents. The takedown's quick, the crooked cops cuffed. The lead officer dragged away, howling her name. Naomi just walks into the sunrise, unbothered, knowing this war inside the system is just getting started. By morning, her face is everywhere. Headlines screaming about corruption, protesters cheering, talking heads arguing about justice and power and who really stands for what in this country. But if you caught her at the gas station, where it all began, helmet in hand, scars glinting in the early light, you'd see something quieter, relief, maybe, but mostly a kind of tired determination. One storm down, she says to her. Reflection, 1,000 more to face. She fires up her bike, peels out toward whatever's next, and leaves us all wondering. How many more Naomi Carters are out there, standing their ground when the whole system tries to shut them down? So what do you think? Who was in the right? Who crossed the line? And does justice ever really win in the end? Drop your thoughts below, share your stories. And let's keep this conversation rolling. 'Cause these battles? They belong to all of us. You know, I kept thinking that once Naomi Carter had exposed those dirty cops down at Pier 19, that was it. Story over. Tie a bow on it. Cue the triumphant headlines and all that. But life doesn't ever tie itself up that neatly, especially not when you're dealing with the kind of rot that goes all the way to the bone. For Naomi, there wasn't any victory parade, no press conference, just the low hum of her superbike and the weight of 1,000 new eyes watching her every move. Both friend and foe. The sun barely had a chance to crawl over the rooftops before her phone started lighting up again. News alerts, anonymous tips, encrypted messages. Every side wanted a piece of her now, some calling her a hero, some calling her reckless, and a whole lot of powerful folks wondering how the hell she'd slipped through their fingers. But Naomi just shrugged it off. Like a boxer rolling with the punch. She knew this was bigger than a couple of bad apples, bigger than one night on the docks. She spent the next few days sleeping with one eye open. Never in the same place twice. Always listening for the soft click of a tail behind her in traffic or the flash of a camera lens out the corner of her eye. At the same time, the streets were boiling over. Protesters camped outside the precinct. Angry citizens demanding accountability. Every local reporter sniffing around for the next headline. The police union tried to paint her as some kind of troublemaker, but every time they spoke up, another piece of dirty laundry hit the internet. Bodycam leaks, anonymous whistleblowers. Turns out, once the dam broke, there was no stopping the flood. Meanwhile, back at HQ, the brass weren't exactly sure what to do with Naomi. She wasn't just a problem, she was a puzzle. Too visible to bury, too valuable to let walk away. She got called into meetings with men in expensive suits who tried to steer her, intimidate her, flatter her, all the usual tricks. She sat there, hands folded, eyes flat, letting them talk themselves in circles. She wasn't interested in making deals. She wanted the rot gone for good. Then, just as the heat started to die down, a twist nobody saw coming. One of the cops Naomi had helped bust at the pier, a guy named Ferris, turned up dead in a hotel room across state lines. The story stank right away. Official word was overdose, but anyone who'd seen his record knew he didn't touch that stuff. Naomi's gut told her this was a cleanup job, someone tying off loose ends. It meant the network went higher, deeper, maybe even federal. She started digging, making quiet calls, leaning on favors. From old friends, Army, FBI, even a crusty reporter she'd saved from a firefight overseas. Each clue pointed to something uglier. Missing evidence lockers, erased digital trails, mysterious black SUVs spotted at crime scenes. It was like chasing smoke. Still, Naomi pressed on, night after night, tracing money, names, even calling in a favor from an old tech guy in the signals core to pull encrypted texts off a burner phone. Each breadcrumb led her closer to a name. Someone high up, someone people only spoke about in whispers. One night, Naomi found herself outside a bar near the Navy Yard, rain hammering the windows, the kind of place where the ghosts of the city went to drown their regrets. She was meeting Maya, an old Army buddy turned investigative journalist. The kind of woman who never took classified for an answer. Maya slid her a file across the table, thick with printouts and photos. "You're not gonna like what you see," she warned. Inside were pictures of a deputy chief, a city councilman, even a former Pentagon analyst, all showing up in places they had no business being, all connected by a web of phone calls, shell companies, and late-night meetings. The rot wasn't just local, it was national, maybe global. Naomi let out a long, shaky breath, the weight of it pressing down on her like a rucksack loaded with bricks. "So this is what we're up against," she muttered, more to herself than to Maya. But that's the thing about Naomi, she never ran from a fight. Not in the sand, not in the streets. Not when the stakes meant everything. She spent the next week assembling a tiny team. Maya, her signals core guy, and, surprisingly, one of the younger cops who'd been at the gas station that day. A rookie who'd quietly slipped her a USB full of internal memos. People were choosing sides now, and not everyone wanted to go down with a sinking ship. The final showdown didn't happen in broad daylight, not with news cameras and sirens, but in a crumbling warehouse on the edge of the city, where the worst secrets always seemed to end up. Naomi and her crew moved in under the cover of night, tracking a truck full of stolen tech meant for export. What they found inside was enough to bring down half the city: weapons, cash, documents, and a stack of hard drives that proved just how deep the corruption ran. The takedown was ugly. Bullets chipped concrete, shouts echoed through the rafters, and for a split second Naomi thought she'd pushed her luck too far this time. But her training, her stubborn will, and the loyalty of the handful around her, it carried them through. When the smoke cleared, sirens wailed and federal agents poured in, hauling out men in suits, cops in cuffs, even a news anchor who'd gotten a little too close to the money. When the dust settled, it was Naomi who handed the evidence to the feds, Naomi who stood in front of the cameras, helmet tucked under her arm, looking tired but undefeated. She didn't gloat. She didn't give speeches. She just said, "Clean house. All of it," and walked off into the city, the dawn breaking over her shoulder. Maybe you think that's the end, but honestly, it's just another beginning. Justice isn't a straight line. It's a battle you fight day after day, choice after choice, knowing the system's never as clean as it should be. Naomi Carter didn't set out to be a hero. She just refused to back down when everything was on the line. So what about you? What would you have done in her place? Would you have stood up, kept fighting, or looked the other way? Let's hear it. Drop your story, your thoughts, your truth below, because maybe the next fight is closer than any of us want to believe.